Hi everybody, Giselle Grenier here from artplace.ca. For today's workshop, I'm going to take one of my book of background pages that does absolutely nothing for me and transform it. My jump off point for this project is my messing around journal that really isn't theme specific. I just have it with me and I do a whole bunch of stuff. And I was doing just a drawing. This is with some water-soluble oil pastels, and I just use the water brush here. This is an Aquaflow brush, and I just use it with water. It's got water in it, and I just mess around. It's a great way to do a little study that's like mega fast. So I came up with an idea of doing something center justified, and the reason being for that is that I see a lot of stuff from my students. And especially when they're first starting, is that they tend to make everything in the center, which is not necessarily a good thing depending on the subject, but this time it's okay. So we're going to do a painting based on this type of theme. And then I'm also going to teach you something else. So this is more of a lesson design, a lesson project, instead of just making something quick and dirty. You don't have to go to the Book of Backgrounds video for this because we're going to be covering this with gesso. So if I was doing this from scratch, it could be canvas, it could be masonite, it could be gesso board, whatever you want, watercolor paper, whatever you want. But if it's watercolor paper, make sure it's at least 140 pounds because you don't want it to curl. You can paint on chipboard or you know those this stuff here, what comes in the back of your pads, and just paint it with a few layers of gesso to get it primed. I mean, you don't have to have expensive supplies for this. And the reason why this does nothing for me is because I did it upside down. I have something on this side I do not want to touch, and this is one of the actual Book of Background videos that I'm not going to modify because I absolutely love it. So for the other side, it's this, and I like this. I don't like this upside down, and it does nothing for me. So we're going to cover this up. The challenge with this I'm going to have is because this is so textured. Okay, this is with the crackle medium. There's a little bit of bounce here, so I'll have to be careful. As with all the videos, the supplies I'm going to actually be using will be listed at the end of the video because sometimes I will pull additional supplies or not use everything that I'm going to call out right now. I'm going to go with the brushes first. I'm using some synthetic, some natural, and a foam brush. To start off, I've got 3 mop brushes, and because I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be softening some areas, and you can't just use the same mop brush over and over and over again because the mop just picks up the tip of the paint, and then you have to get a fresh one. And if you've done Bill Alexander painting, or my mentor Buck Paulson, he calls it a bunny brush. That's the type of thing. Okay, so bunch of mop brush. These are goat hair brushes, a little bristle fan, a little bristle bright, and a Taklon brush. This is a glaze wash. So I don't pay attention to size numbers on the handles. I go with the size of the brush, which is why I may end up pulling something else based on what I'm painting. But it's a number 4 fan, a number 5 bright, a 3/4 inch glaze wash, 1/2 inch, 3/4, and 1 inch mop brush. I have more over there if I need them. A little wooden handle foam brush for the gesso, a palette knife in case we need it. And I'm going to go backwards with the paints. Okay, so I've got my acrylic gesso, dimensional effects. This is paintable texture, and what I want to do is I actually want to model the tree in and then paint it after, so it'll be 3D. You don't have to, but that's what I'm going to show. I'm using Decor Art Traditions paints, and I'm going to call out the colors. I've got carbon black, titanium white, burnt sienna, yellow oxide, Hansa yellow medium, Indian yellow, permanent alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, and phthalo blue. For those of you that have been following me, you know that this is my standard palette of colors with the somewhat optional color of carbon black. Indian yellow I use in acrylics in oils. I call it my sunshine color. But I also use, it's depending on which brand, it's different colors, but it's close to Cad Yellow Deep or Indian Yellow. It's a sunshine color, which is basically just an orange and a bit of yellow. Okay. I had a student contact me, and she was watching one of my videos, and I was using blue-gray. And she said she can't find blue-gray, so I guess where she gets her paints, it doesn't really matter what brand you use, just make sure it's a really good quality, and Traditions is an affordable artist quality acrylic. But she was saying blue-gray. And she's watched my videos before, so she knows that blue-gray means nothing, because there's many different types of blue. And gray can be made different ways. It's not always just black and white, okay? Because we know that we can tone down a color, gray it down, by adding its complement, which we're also going to be doing in this video. So I'm going to be showing you about creating with 3D, a little bit of color mixing. We're going to make a blue-gray by simply using phthalo blue, black, and white. Simple. Okay. We're also going to be doing a little bit of complementary painting by taking, when we paint the tree with the oranges, we're going to be doing the darks on the bottom with its complementary color. So we're going to be doing the complements down here. And we could also make a chromatic black. We don't have to use this black. We can make a chromatic black with ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. We can make something more like burnt umber with more burnt sienna to ultramarine blue, and something like Payne's Gray with more ultramarine blue to burnt sienna. So there's different ratios. So we're going to do a little bit of learning today. Ruler for composition, and I've got my standard stuff, my dirty palette, my water container, and I keep saying this, but people ask me, what the heck is your brush grooming pad? And of course I don't have it. I put it aside so I could show you. And oh my goodness, where is it? Chaos likes to, I have to hide it in a little container because Chaos likes to jump on the bathroom counter where I quickly rinse my brushes, and she likes to take this and knock it on the floor. This is a scrubby pad, and this brush grooming pad I use specifically for my bristle brushes with a little bit of 1001 stain remover, also known as Winning Colors, a drop, just one drop in here, and with a little bit of water, and you rub. It keeps these brushes really clean. In saying that, those of you that have seen my number 8 Bristle Bright, you go, why isn't it clean? There's a stain. It's like this color, as long as with phthalo green, this will get into everything. So it's mega powerful. It will stain brushes, and you know what? It's not the end of the world if your brush is stained. But the cleaner is great, because even if the paint stays in your brushes and stains it, and you clean it till the cows come home, stain isn't going to affect your next painting. Okay, paper towels. Now I'm using some shop cloths only because I ran out of the other stuff, but some shop cloths and my Clorox wipes. Joe promised me that we're going to get baby wipes because this is starting to actually. I cut myself on a cheese grater and it's burning my fingers. Oh, and Chaos gave me my chair back. Yay! And with using phthalo, any of the phthalo colors, I wear my painting apron. All right. So what we're going to do first is we're going to gesso this down. Now everybody does this differently. If you gesso with a wet brush, it's going to be thin. I like to gesso dry, meaning dry foam brush. Again, it's depending on what I'm doing. For this one, I'm going to gesso it dry. The reason why I'm gessoing it dry is I don't remember how I did this. If the paper tends to curl or bend, I've got crackle stuff on here. I don't want this to break off. So I'm going to put this on dry. And putting this on dry will also allow me to be able to put on the second layer right away. On the container, it does say there's a waiting time for curing. Unless I'm doing a commission or something I'm going to be selling, I never follow that rule. There's a reason for the rule, because you need to let it cure. But if we're just using the gesso as, oh, I've got some of my DNA in here. If we're just going to use the gesso as is, and just for like a play piece, that's fine. This is actually going to be a pochade of a pochade. It's a pochade study of a pochade. That's my little pochade. This is going to be another study because I'm going to do it a little bit formally. So see, I can just keep going like this and just see how beautiful that, how transparent that is. What I'm doing is I'm adding some opacity. I don't want to waste paint on this because it's paint's a lot more expensive than gesso. Gesso goes a lot further. Many times if I want tooth, I will use gesso instead of paint. Jerry Yarnell does that too. That's where I learned that from. He got me started into fine art. There we go. Okay. That's kind of cool. Now we'll just take this and we'll just shove it in some water. It doesn't have to be completely opaque because I'm putting paint on top of this. All I want to do is cover what's there. Look at this mess already. This needs to be perfectly dry before you put the next layer of paint on. When it comes to priming, okay, so remember this is going to be more lesson driven, so if you're advanced or really know your mediums, you can just skip through this part, but my videos are all geared towards beginners and intermediates. If you're using gesso as a base, okay, it's not part of the actual painting, but part of a base. You need to let it dry, and if at all possible, okay, if you have the time, let it dry for the 24 hours. If not, avoid using a heat gun to speed up the drying time. Because the gesso is much thicker than the acrylic paint, what you don't want to do, first of all, you don't want to burn it because it'll blister. And secondly, if you take an area, let's take, well, mine is all even, but if you take an area that was maybe a little bit thicker, like say here's a bit more paint and here there's not so much, with the heat gun, if you by chance accidentally, heat a little bit too close, only for a few minutes, you're drying the top, you're not drying underneath, and you're going to get kind of like a bubble, and it's not going to dry evenly. So when gesso is being used as a base, if possible, let it dry naturally. If it's for a formal painting, something you're going to be giving to somebody or putting in your home or selling as a commission, then let it dry for the 24 hours. If it's part of the base, if it's the primer of the base, okay? So you want to make sure that it's cured. If you're just messing around, you're just having some fun, like for me, I'm not going to let it dry. I'm just going to go ahead and paint once it's dried. I'm not going to use a heat gun on this. If you want something with a little bit more tooth as your white, that's when you can use a gesso to paint with. I do it all the time. All right, so while this is drying, let's go on to the color mixing exercise. I'm going to lay out some O. I'm going to grab a journal, which you guys laugh when I always say, oh, Chaos runs away with my, she knocks this down on the ground. She likes to chew these. Mia runs away with this. Chaos likes my kneadable eraser. You guys laugh, but holy smokes, unless you own a dog or a cat, you will never understand what it's like to be an artist with pets. A lot of the times, they're absolutely amazing. Other times, you just want to lock everything away. This is one of my color theory journals, which, by the way, there was a charm on this and it's gone. Chaos likes to chew these. If I've got videos on my blog, old videos, where I do bookbinding. When I pick up my bookbinding needle and my cording, Chaos will be there. She likes to chew on the strings. This is one of my color mixing journals. What we're looking at, holy smokes, okay. This is for the chart I did for a painting. I was doing an industrial painting of nature within industry, and it was featuring Dofasco, which is now it's called ArcelorMittal. I don't know how I'm pronouncing that right, but anyways, part of the color was I was making chromatic black, but with red. So you can see right here that by taking phthalo blue with carbon black and then you mix in some white in it, you get these beautiful grays. Beautiful grays. So if we take the blue gray, and I've got mixes like throughout the entire journal, and this is what you should be doing, keeping your color studies in journals. This journal is made out of TerraSkin, which is paper made from stone. It's not made from trees, made from stone. So I can keep oils in here as well as acrylics. But usually with the oils, you have to leave it open unless you're using a drying agent or tape in a page. And I will just put this right here. And what do we do if we want to see a true underlying color? If you've been following me, you know what I'm talking about. You add oh, it's saying it's time I need to get some more of this. Add a little bit of white. So I will take my trusty round brush. Since Taklon brushes always go in water, never load them into paint dry. There we are. How's that for you? I call this my chromatic black, which is my phthalo blue, and I did this, let me see. You can take chromatic black with phthalo blue and you can mix it up with even burnt sienna or burnt umber or stuff like that. So my chromatic black, let me see where was I going this? My chromatic black here, I made it with phthalo green and permanent alizarin crimson. This blue gray is made with, out of the tube, with phthalo blue, black, and white. So you can easily make the same thing by using those colors. I'm going to move this over and so if you guys are quite knowledgeable on color mixing, you can just probably skip this. A little bit of phthalo blue, which was obviously too much, and some black. It's great to show you, but how about I actually show you how to do it. And in a journal, that way you have all your color mixes in one spot. We are trying to match to this. Okay. We're trying to match to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little piece of paper. What I'm doing is I'm taking some off the page so it doesn't dry as a big blob. A little bit of white so you can see the underlying color. And oh my goodness, I put everything so far away so kitty cat couldn't get it. Traditions, blue, gray, an arrow, plus titanium white. Okay. Side. And I'm using a little round brush just because it's easier. scoop out some of this white. Phthalo blue. Start off with equal amounts. I already know it's going to be too much blue, but let's see. So phthalo blue. I'm going to dip into the white, just go onto the side. Oh, it's a little bit blue, so I'm going to pick up a little bit of black. There we go. Oops, you can't see that. Now, one thing is you will never, ever, 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 ever be able to perfectly match a mix to a manufacturer's mix because they use the measurements, so it could be down to a minuscule. What I mean with that is, see that mix there? Okay, let me just add a bit of black to it. A little bit more white. Okay, now watch this. I'm going to take this here and I'll add some white to it just so you can see. Watch what happens if I dip into just a speck of phthalo blue. Look at how it shifts that color dramatically with a speck. So we're talking precise measurements in order to get to this. So all I'm interested in is getting something that's close. And let's see, what's PBK 15? When I look at this, to me, I don't know. It looks like there's a little bit of purple in there. But there's purple's not listed on the bottle. Purple is not listed on the bottle. But to me, it looks like there's a little bit of purple in there. A little bit. Whoops. Take a little bit of black, a little bit more white. Pretty close. Pretty close. Let's try something. And once you start color mixing, you get addicted. I took a little bit of ultramarine blue. Although the bottle doesn't say there's ultramarine blue in there, when that dries, you won't be able to tell the difference. So the measurements, I kept going in the wrong one. The measurements are so precise. It's a little bit light. The measurements are very, very precise from the manufacturer. So there we go. That looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. But if we pick up some white in that, that's what it is with a little bit of white added. See? They all look the same. The entire mix. So this is titanium white, phthalo blue, carbon black, plus touch of ultramarine blue. And then we have the blue gray. So there you go. Pretty close. There's the actual blue gray right there. So that's how to make blue gray. So there we go. Color mixing lesson number 1 is complete. Ooh, move that aside. And just going to change that paper up. I know, I'm wasting paper, aren't I? Bad me. Bad me. This is dry. Now let's get painting. I'm going to make, oh, that's the other thing. When you're the mix that you're making up, I brought it the wrong paint. Even whether you're making up your own paints with the blues, keep in mind that the blues are semi-transparent. The white is what's going to add the opacity, okay? So just be careful how much of the mix you do add. How much of the blues you do add that are semi-transparent. I got lost in what I was doing. Sorry. I'm putting out some carbon black. I'm going to use gesso for my white because it's very thick. That's the only reason why I'm using it for this, because it's thick. And because the titanium white's almost gone. I like using gesso, especially as the base, because it is so opaque. The dry crumbs, put those aside. Bit of phthalo blue. Little bit of phthalo blue to white. I already know I have way too much phthalo blue, so it doesn't take much. I also broke my rule. Always add from the side. Never go directly into the paint. This looks like cerulean blue now. Gonna add a speck of ultramarine blue. And a little bit of carbon black. You could also gray it down with burnt sienna or burnt umber. Oh yeah, way too much blue. Way too much phthalo blue. I don't think I have enough paint. You know that? What I want to do is I want to make the sky fairly blue-gray. Yeah, I'm going to have to make up more paint. Color mixing is not a speedy thing either, especially if you're looking for a particular blue-gray. Oh, I think I'm getting it. I want mine to be a little bit more on the violet side though. Ultramarine blue is blue on the violet side. Phthalo blue is blue that's on the green side. Awesome. Now I can use whatever I have left of titanium white. I can use that. I'm going to hold that upside down to see if I can get any more out of that. I don't know if I'm going to. Okay. What am I going to use to paint the sky? Oh, you silly girl. You silly, silly, silly girl. Well, let's take not this brush. Oh, good English. I'm going to take my fusion brush, dip it in water. And I'm going to start, I'm going to have to do this in 2 stages because I'm not quite sure about the opacity. I'm going to start with white because it's thinner. And also because if I'm going to be going with the foreground being in the yellows, what happens when you mix blue and yellow? You get green. And what I'm doing now is I'm just wetting the surface with paint. If you're in an extremely hot environment, you could add a little bit of blending medium to your paint. Make sure you got a good amount of titanium white on there. On that same brush, pick up the blue-gray. And I'm using X strokes. I'm going to pick up a little bit more. This is a wet on wet painting. And a little bit more as I'm working down. I can feel the paint starting to dry now. I'm going to go down as far as I can. I'm going to pick up a little bit of white. A bit more white. A bit more white. There we go. In water. Get your mop brush. And I'm just going to go back and forth where I see where the brush strokes meet. And I'm just going to do little X strokes, little circles. That's why you're always changing the brush. Okay? I'm getting this started first. I'm going to use this to create some motion. In water, get another brush. I'm going to go into some of the white. Go back up into the blue. Right here I was holding the paper down and I missed getting some paint over here. It's okay, I'm going to have to do it in 2 layers. I'm going to take my brush right into white and just, if I want to put a little bit of something here, circle that. Fade that into the background. Isn't that cute? A little bit more white. Neat, eh? Go into a little bit more white. Let's see if we can recover from this part. Again, I'm not too worried about this because it's just a study. Now you notice where I'm working my way down, I'm not sure now where I want to have my horizon line, so I'm thinking in the actual journal, I've got it fairly down low. So if you're not sure, do you want to show more sky or more ground? I want to show more sky. So you can take your ruler, and the page is 12 inches. So I know that I can put it in rule of thirds. Okay, I know I can put my horizon line right around the 8-inch mark. So with that, just take some white right around the 8-inch mark, and I'm just going to go with my mop brush side by side because I want everything soft. And what this is doing is just adding an additional layer of white because the ground area I'm putting as a reflection of the sun, which is going to be very yellow because I'm putting a lot of yellow, my sunshine color, in the trees. In the tree. I'm going to get some more gesso. No, I'm not. I'm getting some white. Sorry about that. On the side, I'm going to have to go get another bottle of this. Painting with the mop brushes to me, is very similar to painting with my oil brushes, my Sable Tex. They're very soft. They blend beautifully. That's why I love the mop brushes, for blending. Bob Ross has, Weber makes, I think Weber makes their brushes. You know what? I'm not sure. Scratch that because I'm not 100% sure. Weber makes the paints. Brushes, I'm not sure, but I digress. The Bob Ross brushes, he's got a blender, which is made from goat hair, but it's more of a flat brush. It's a nice brush as well. Just going to soften this a little bit. When as the sky goes down, it grays down and cools down. So I'm right at the 1/3 mark here. The halfway mark is at 6. You don't want to put a horizon line at the 6. So just further down a little bit. Take a little bit of what's in here. Just put a little bit of paint here. And the white closer to the top. And it just fades down. I'm going to get another mop brush, a little smaller one. Fade the bottom into the sky. See how it's just really, really soft? Just fade it in. I don't want it to be too in your face. And just put this here. I'm going to really soften that in. I'm going to get another mop brush. I say with the mop brushes, I use a lot of them because I always want them dry. Excuse me. Okay, unfortunately you can't quite see totally what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm just picking up the paint. Now the paint is starting to get a little bit tacky, so I'm going to stop. And I still didn't quite get the edges done, but that's okay. There's a hair stuck there. Here we go. There we are. Nice and thick. Now as well with this, I'm going to let this dry naturally. And because it's so thick, the next step, what I do is I'm going to take my charcoal pencil. I'm going to roughly sketch out my tree because I want to add the tree in with the dimensional effects. One thing I forgot to tell you, and with this instructional lesson, you should be watching it first, then doing the painting. If this is actually a painting you're doing, have your, if you're doing it on watercolor paper or some type of stock that you can cut, just make it a little bit bigger than you want, and you can use masking tape, and that way you can handle the page and then cut it down after so you don't get like the fingerprint marks here. If you're doing this on a canvas or more of a harder substrate, you can do it on an easel and you won't have to actually handle it like this. Okay? Or if you do it in a journal, you just make it smaller. There we go. I've got my charcoal pencil and I'm looking here, and what I'm looking at doing is right about here. I'm going to make this quite centered, and so I'm thinking I want this tree trunk to be about there. Visually, I know what I want to do, but if you're looking at doing, practicing more with measurements, the other 1/3 mark is right here. Okay, so that way you'll just make sure that you're not going to put something smack dab in the middle. Didn't quite bring the sky down enough, but that's okay because I can always put the tree down here just a little bit. And I want the tops of the trees to be right about here. Scribble, scribble, scribble like you've had too much coffee. And scribbling is good because you're not going to make a perfectly round tree. And then let's create a trunk here, and you can make a trunk. Well, we can actually make a trunk right in the middle. Excuse me. So that's what we're looking at. We want to make this tree more like that. And it's actually, and this is going to be quite dark right here. Okay, that's going to be dark. And this is actually just going to fade out. I'm going to bring that down just a little bit more right there. Okay. I want to palette knife the tree. Get my palette knife. This takes a bit to dry, so I'm doing it now, and then I'm going to go and Mia has her graduation tonight, so I'm going to paint this now, then I'm going to paint that in. Give it time to dry. If you've scribbled, just follow the scribbles. With a palette knife, it's very hard to be perfect. But see this lumpy bumpy I have right in the middle? No. Get rid of that. Put the lumpy bump right over here if you need to. See how textured this is? I love texture in my pieces. I was studied with an artist, and what he said, and it's not that he says he was cheap, but I don't know. When we were doing oil paintings, and we had our palette of oils, and we would scrape off the oils with a blade, he got me to take my scrapings and put it into a plastic bag and let them dry out. Then when we did something like this, all you did was mix the dried out oil paint shavings, mix it into your paint, and just do that. And yeah, it worked, but I think if I had to do that now, I would just do the base in acrylics with using this type of medium, gesso on top, and then paint with the oils. You can put oils on top of acrylics. You can't put acrylics on top of oils. Is that a pleasing shape for me? Not really. This is too round. Look, do you have enough eye motion, motion? You don't want your ends to completely be even. Okay, composition. Nothing should be even. Nothing should have a repetitive pattern. Okay. This is a little bit even, so I'm going to bring this down just a little bit. It is in the middle, but it's the middle of the tree. That's where everything kind of grows from. There we go. Oops, I got phthalo blue. See? Phthalo blue in my fingers. See? Try to clean your hands. See? It gets everywhere. Oh, man. And this does not, you can't, a wipe just won't clean phthalo blue. I tell you, you guys don't believe me, but look. And if you don't like texture painting like this, then just skip this step. This is going to take about 2 hours to dry. The other medium that I like using is the crackle medium. That's also nice to use. Now I'm going to take this and go across. You can do this with gesso as well. I did a video on that too, doing texture painting with gesso. Okay. Take a look there. The reason why I can get away with doing this, because I have the crackle paste on the back, I can get away with making this page like this. It's a hard piece. Now I'm just holding the page and I'm just softening the stuff back here. You can also do this with mountains as well. I'm just making sure that my horizon line is relatively straight. We got some good texture in here. What you don't want is to see the shape of the palette knife like that. What you want to do is just see things moving around. It creates natural. You can make this into snow. All right, let's let this dry. So I'll come back after, probably about 2 hours. If you're doing this in the evening, just let it sit overnight. That way you'll be sure that it is dry. All right, this I'm going to put away because you know what's going to happen? Chaos is going to jump up here. She's sleeping right now, but she's going to jump up here. And what color do you think her paw would go into first? Phthalo blue. So I'm getting rid of this. All right, I will see you in a minimum of 2 hours. It's been about 24 hours and now it's nice and dry. And the nice thing with this Dimensional Effects, it is flexible. It doesn't crack. But there is a little bit of a warp on the page. Okay, because there's a lot of stuff here as well. I'm not going to let that bother me though. I've laid out my paints. And I got inspired by something. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it or not. These colors are pretty flat. Okay, there's not a lot of luminescence coming through. And I thought, well, what if I did a base of this, then glaze some transparent red and yellow iron oxide on top, where it'd be more yellow here and dark here, because this is all going to be shadowed. I don't know. It might work. It may not. I don't know yet. Okay. So let's I'm going to work the branch first, and I'm going to, where's my little round brush? I usually like doing the stalks or the tree trunks with a flat brush because I can just cut into the areas, but there really isn't much showing. I don't know, I'll see what I do. I see what happens. I'm going to dampen the brush, and with this, really, there isn't much to do with this. I could do it as a dark branch with some highlights, which is what I'm going to do, and we could use burnt umber, raw umber, whatever. I'm just going to make a dark mix with roughly 2 parts burnt sienna, 1 part ultramarine blue. This makes a somewhat substitute for burnt umber. Okay, I like getting them kind of choppy, rough. That way they look a little bit more interesting. And I'm not too worried about getting right into the tree because I'm going to be laying some stuff over top. Then with the same color, let's just, with the Jiggy Jaggies, just dry brush over the top. And I think I want it where I did the dimensional effects actually went a little too high, so I think I might use this opportunity for a background mountain. But I'm just establishing the darks here, and let me just do a quick, I'll just clean my brush at the same time. This is all going to be shadowed here, so I'm going to get that set right now. Okay, so this is going to be the rough area. Alright, that takes care of that. That was a lot of work just for that. So, like I said, looks like burnt umber. You can 2 part burnt sienna, 1 part ultramarine blue. And just experiment with the different blues and different browns. Okay, so I'm just going to put that there. And I'm going to grab a soft brush. I'm going to grab a little number 10 shader that I just realized I did not clean properly. There's dried paint in it. Okay. I'll have to let that sit in some 1000+ stain remover, see if I can get that off. For the background mountain, I'm going to take some, I don't need a lot, it's titanium white, speck of ultramarine blue. Dioxazine purple would have been nice, but I don't have that on my palette. I'm too lazy to go and get it. See, alizarin crimson, way too much now. Way too much. I'll be able to adjust that. Go a little bit of burnt sienna, and we're making a blue-gray that's on the purple side. Oh, look at that. There we go. And you got a glare there. I'm going to, do I have something I can put underneath here? Let me just put a little brush scrubby, just so you don't have a glare. I hate it when that happens. I hate it, hate it, hate it. There we go. What I'm looking for is something a little bit darker than the sky, but not too much. There we go, that's pretty good. And just dry brush and just go over the dimensional effects. I'm not going over anything else, just that. I'll go back over the, just going to tilt this a little bit. Just going over where I see that, right off the page. This is a great way to do mountains. You let the medium tell you where to paint. Gonna pick up a little bit of that brown and just go right back in here. Just going to touch over a little bit of these mountains. Now I'm not thrilled with the shape of this one, so I'm just going to adjust it just a smidgen. There we go. And just going to take a little bit more white just in the front, just so it kind of looks like that this one's in front of this one, like so. Just paint it in here. And I'm going to go back over now, just burnt sienna right on top. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow oxide just on the left. Just on the left branch, and maybe a little bit just in the middle one on the left side. More burnt sienna. I'm going to go with it, just pick up a hit of blue, get something nice and dark. On the right side, get that filled in. You don't want any white showing in. A little bit of water. There we are. Now this can be a little bit rough on your brushes, so don't use your good brushes for this. Don't use your good brushes at all. Gonna let this dry now, and while that's taking place, I'm going to take my 2 bristle brushes and I'm going to start painting that in. Gonna start with the dark and work towards the light, and it doesn't really matter which way I go. I'm going to take some burnt sienna, and let me think. I'm going to take a little bit of blue over here and a little bit of, let's see, I'm going to take a little bit of yellow oxide, get a ucky green, a little bit of phthalo blue. See, too much phthalo blue. And get some burnt sienna in there. You get a really toned down green. And I'm just going to roughly go over the dimensional effects. And I'm looking at just going right about to here, okay, for the shadowed area. See what's happening? Look at all that. It looks like there's branches. What you don't want to do though is put too much moisture, because you don't want to saturate everything. I'm going to pick up a little bit more burnt sienna. I'm just going to go here. Oh, see, I covered a little bit too much up. So the bristle brushes are better for this particular stage. Okay. Make sure it's dark. The darkest should be at this corner right in here. Then it should fade out a little bit. Now I'm going to take a little bit of yellow oxide in my dirty brush, and I'm just going to go right about in the middle, hit some spots here. Now what this will do is be some of the branches, that the tree that's kind of sticking out a little bit higher. Now I take a little bit of yellow, Hansa yellow medium, in my dirty brush, and just hit a few spots. So the parts that are sticking out will have more of this color. Now as I go over, now I'm going to take a little bit of yellow oxide right in there. It'll make a really, really toned down green. Get a little bit of ultramarine blue. And I'm thinking, you know, chrome oxide green would have been perfect for this. Where this part here is going to be more yellow. Take, let's see, a little bit of, I'm going to take a little bit of Indian yellow. Oh yeah, right there. There we go. The other thing you could do too is stain the whole thing with a little bit of paint first, then you can paint it over. I'm going to do the staining after and see what happens. So it's still dry brushing with Indian yellow. Hansa yellow medium at the very outside, always with a dirty brush. Ooh, I like that. I like that hit. Indian yellow and come in here. Now I'm laying the paint down. Laying the paint down allows the actual pieces of the dimensional effects that are sticking up just to grab the paint. Oops, I just got paint on my arm. And yellow oxide back over here. Just lay it down. If you don't like this much texture, then just don't use it. I just love how it creates some really interesting effects. It still looks dark inside here. And if you happen to put too much in, then take a little bit more yellow oxide, a little bit more phthalo blue, a little hit of ultramarine blue, or just grab chrome oxide green. And a little bit of burnt sienna. And just right inside. Preferably while it's wet, because it'll just make it a little bit easier. Just don't make it spotty. Like this is spotty, so just kind of fade that out a little bit. There we go. Remember, it's very dark on this side. I'm going to take a little bit of water, and now I'm just going to do a light stain. Basically, it's whatever's in the rest of my brush. I'm just going to let it really fill in. It just wasn't enough for me to cover up all the white cracks. There we go. See that? I'm going to let that dry for a bit, and then when we come back, see when you can just lay down some of the paint? Just yellow oxide. Actually, I'm not going to let it dry. Wet on wet. It looks beautiful. I'm going to take a little bit of black right in here and burnt sienna. It'll really darken that up, and I'm just going to do the same thing here. Now I'm just going to touch this like this and let, this is now the color I have here is very close to raw umber, and I'll probably never be able to create a mix like that again. Raw umber is just a brown that's a little bit on the greenish side. It's why it's a popular color for people portraits. I'm going to take a little bit more burnt sienna in the mix. And a little hit of black. Really, really dark. That now looks too black. That's too black. There we go. Burnt sienna. It just brings it back to normal. There we go. Just laying it down, it just picks up the top edges. So now we got, see how we're seeing the cracks coming back now? I love that. Love that. So we have the dark fading into light. We still don't have enough light here. But what I want to do is I want to let, I wonder if I can get away with, I think water, Indian yellow. Yeah, that works. Just really wet your brush. And I'm just a little bit of yellow oxide, and I'm just now where the areas are white. See the stain, I should have did the stain first, then did the laying of the color. But that's why this is an experiment. I love the texture in this, but can you see how just it just really lends itself? Too splotchy. I'm just going to touch a little bit of these edges here. Just to kind of tie those in. And where I picked up the black, I can bring some of that up here. Right inside. There we are. That's pretty. Now I have to let that dry because I want to highlight it with the Hansa Yellow Medium. So this I can hit with the heat gun for a few minutes, and then we'll highlight that, and then we're going to come down and then work this part. While I let that finish drying, I'm going to grab my round brush, and I'm going to go into that, that dark Ucky mix here, nothing fancy, and I just want to thicken up the branches a little bit, and I'm going to expand the bottom, the base. Just fill that in because there is quite a bit of the dimensional effects that I missed, and I missed a whole pile up here. I'll have to fix that as well. So although it does make for a nice technique for painting, it's a little bit challenging to work with sometimes. You just work with it. It's as simple as that. And I don't like stuff that's perfectly straight, so I'm just going to put a little branchy thing there. And this one here I can highlight if I want to bring them center branch in front. I can highlight that one and make the one in the back dark, depending on how you want to do that. Totally up to you. Okay. Now that's totally up to you. But I like using up what I call garbage paint when all the leftover stuff. And I can put a little nubby here. There, that is so much better. So much better. While I'm at it, let me fix the top part as well. Now the top part I can just hit that with, say, yellow oxide and take whatever's left over on the palette. A little bit of water. Take a little bit of Indian yellow in there as well. This is more of a stain now. And I can tell that by using an actual Taklon brush, this brush here, instead of the bristle brush, I'm getting a completely different effect. Now, dimensional effects on a Taklon brush, an aesthetic brush, like natural, soft, not natural, but soft brush, is hard on your brushes, so just be careful. but it does lend to the staining a lot nicer because this can hold a lot of water. I'm just going through now, making sure there aren't any white pieces showing. But mind you, the little pieces here looks like the sky showing through, so that's all right. Love it, love it. Now I'm going to take my fan brush. This is where you can decide exactly how much shadowing you want. I'm going to take Hansa Yellow Light, no, Hansa Yellow Medium and Indian Yellow, and just, I'm going to take a speck of white. I don't know if I think it's going to be a little chalky. I don't think it's going to be a little chalky. Just touch it where it's the brightest. Drag the brush over. You can always cover it up too if it's too much. A little bit at the top here. And as we fade our way down, this way now I'm going to pick up a bit of a darker color and possibly go into this ucky stuff. Don't have enough, so a little bit of ultramarine blue. Touch, touch. And what it's doing is just picking up where the dimensional effects is sticking up. Let's see if I can bend this. See? That's what the paint's grabbing onto. And now we need to get even darker, so a little bit of burnt sienna. A little bit more. And take a little bit of phthalo blue there. Get something very, very dark. That's a pretty green though. I'll take a little bit of black. I rarely use black by itself. But what I like is with chromatic blacks, depending on the blue or the brown you use, if the blue is semi-transparent, which that's what the phthalo blue and ultramarine blue are, the semi-transparent, so you're going to get a more transparent black. If I add black to a mix, carbon black is opaque. And what I want is opacity right now. Just go back into the mud. I just picked up some yellow oxide. Just gonna go slightly over there. It still looks dark, but it definitely does not look black. It looks green. Okay. I love the way that turned out. Pick a spot, any spot. Indian yellow. Right in here. Try not to get any mud on it. Right about in the center. Then enhance the yellow medium. Just hit on the edges. Intermix the two a little bit right in here, maybe a little bit of yellow. Yellow oxide right in here. It's all about the layering. Because as this paint is dry, depending on how wet it is sinking inside. But this is a great experiment on texture. The other thing you can do too is with some decoupage is crumple up some tissue and glue the tissue down in the shape and then just like crumple it up and layer that down. That will make for a really, really pretty tree as well. Ooh, I just made a mess. Alrighty. Now I'm going to work the foreground. Now remember the foreground is, I want to try and experiment on that. Just need more paper towel. And I'm going to get the paint in first. Just going to clean that brush. I'm going to use my 1-inch Fusion. Burnt sienna. I'm not sure if I'm going to like... Oh, that's actually not bad. That's not bad at all. I want it really, really transparent. So this is where the transparent red iron oxide would have been better. I wouldn't have had to add so much water. Just up at the top here. Gonna need to make this really dark. And then here is basically yellow oxide. A little bit of water. And I'm really staining everything right now. Don't let any white pieces show through because it'll look like snow. Wow. Holy smokes. All right. I don't really think the demonstration with the transparent red iron oxide and yellow iron oxide is going to be necessary. I love that. I'm going to hit this with the heat gun because I do see some little white pieces showing, so I will use that opportunity to use the two transparent colors for that. While that's drying, I'm going to come in with my little 3/4 inch flat, only because it's clean, and I want to have a little bit of a darker spot in the back. And take a little bit of burnt sienna, and I just, because I need to cover up that branch or that tree trunk, and I'm just going to pitty patty, pitty patty, pitty patty. Like so. Just like so. Take a bit of yellow oxide. I gotta be careful not to pick up any of that green. Remember, when you glaze, so if we're going to add the transparent yellow and red iron oxide, it's going to make it darker. So you really want to start off with something lighter. And I did pick up green by mistake, right in here. Not going to worry about it too much, but you can see now it's how opaque it is. And take a little bit of white, and I'll show you how well this is going to work. So I'm just picking up white. It's not going to leave it like that, but because I lost a lot of my texture with the white, right about in here, you'll see what's going to happen. Not too much here because this is all shadowed. Again, this is really rough on your brushes, so if you want to save them a little bit, you might want to use your bristle brushes. Just going to touch the top of the mountain. This brush is a little big, but that's another thing to challenge yourself with, is use brushes that are bigger than you would normally use to really challenge yourself. I wonder if I have any of this left. Nope. I gotta be careful not to pick up any darn green. Just putting a little bit of a... Don't like the way that mountain turned out. You're so far in the distance, you're not going to see a lot of detail. I also want to break up. Try that again. I'm going to take some burnt sienna and a little bit of blue. And what I want to do is I just want to break up. I don't want a solid line. So I'm just going to break that up. See what I'm doing? not a solid. See this? This is way too solid. I'm going to break it up. But I'm not going to go like this and like this because that'll be matching. So I'll just kind of this and I'll break it up right here. Okay, it's just so you don't have a solid line anymore. There we are. I'm going to hit this with the heat gun. When you do a glazing, you cannot have any white paint that's wet. You'll just ruin it. On this side, it's not so bad. On this side, it is critical that the paint be dry. Okay, I'm going to flip the palette over because I don't even want to run into a situation where the paint's going to become contaminated. When you're doing a glaze with these colors, it has to be pure. You can mix it with other colors, but you know how sometimes I was picking up some of the colors and I picked up a little bit of the green, or I picked up a little bit of this, picked up a little bit of that. And I'm also going to get a fresh brush. I need to get my filbert brush. Go into a part of the bucket with clean water, not the dirty water. Make sure the bristles are saturated. We'll do the yellow first. If you have a glazing medium, you can use that as well. On an actual painting on canvas or something like that, or a board, I would use glazing medium, but on a study, no. Because it takes too long to dry, especially if it's in a journal. Look at that. The paint is transparent, so it just lets everything show through, and it's very, very luminescent. This paint that I just put out here, it's almost at the end of the bottle, so it's drying out just a little bit. And if you see where it starts to look chalky, that means your white hasn't dried. The other thing you can use too, if you have a lot of drying time, if you have like time to let stuff dry, is use the extender blending medium. And let's see, I want to go. Yeah, we'll leave it to there. And then the red, I'm going to start from here. Then I'm going to overlay it. The red I love. Oh, I'm just going to wet this first. It is so rich, absolutely rich. Now, being this wet, it's not going to grab a lot of the texture. Right now I'm just staining. Because I don't want any little white things showing through. Hit that with the heat gun. It's all relatively dry now, and I dropped my brush and it splattered everywhere. I think it's time I buy another craft mat. I want to darken up the corners a little bit. Well, with the transparent yellow iron oxide, because it is yellow, we probably could mix in a little bit of blue to make a green. I'm so tempted to go right into my phthalo green. Then I'll just take the dirty brush. Let's see what we get. Take a little bit of transparent red iron oxide right in there. Yep, that's all right. A little bit of water. Just want something very, very dark. That's a good mix. I'm going to grab my fan brush. Now, I don't know if this is going to work. And I'm just going to take the fan brush with this really washy paint, and I'm going to hold this down like this. That way the paint, if it drips, it's going to go down. It's going to go this way. Oops, I picked up a little bit of yellow there. A bit more water. Tap, tap, tap. And I'm going to take, a sponge would have been good for that. Oh, it's going to take another fan brush. And I'm just going to, I'm going to do it this way, but what I'm doing is I'm just kind of going back and forth, and I'm just softening that edge. Okay. Pick up a little bit of this here, come right over here. You don't want the left and right corners to be exactly the same. And now I can take a paper towel and just gonna pat a little bit of that. I see too much of a, oh, there we go, I fixed it. There was too much of a perfect line here, but now it's all, that's all fixed up. That was bugging me. Go see, yeah, the nice textures in there. Don't lose this, because this is the where the tree is covering all on this side. And just going to do a little bit more, make it a little bit smaller. Very, very watery. It's just staining, going inside, right inside the crevices. Oh, I like that. Don't like that single dot there, but I like that. It just looks like there's little plants growing there. Try not to have too much picky pointy stuff in the corner though. It draws your attention too far in there. Not a straight line. Make sure you have stuff that's broken up. It's more pleasing. You really want to get something random is you spray the whole piece first with water, then put your paint on, then you can twist and tilt it. See, it's puddling here because the paper is actually curved. So I can turn around and just drag it down. There we go. See that? Now watch the way I'm going to dry. This I am going to show you. So now when I dry it, because it's really wet, you can see, I'm going to try not to disturb too much of the water. So you can see here, if I do that, the water actually moves. See? And I'm drying it towards, the heat gun towards, it's going this way. So everything's pushing towards the top. Just makes it really random. And this step here you can do as many times as you want. And if you let the paint dry naturally, it's going to leave some really hard edges like this one here. I don't know if you can see, it's really dark. And it looks beautiful. Did I get anything on the back side? Oh, a little bit, I think. Here we are. Now, if I pad this, I'm going to lose all this here. And I don't want to lose it. I want to keep that. So at your last step, you can add a little bit more. And you can let it dry naturally. and then you'll be finished. And I'm doing this last little bit here straight with ultramarine blue on the dirty brush. Just kind of touching over where the dimensional effects are. Yeah, the paper is really, really bent here. And I kind of put this in to break it because everything was leading towards this way, and your eye runs off the painting. So I'm making it like this to contain it. There we go. It's too spotty, so just kind of break it up a little bit more. There you are. I'm gonna let this totally dry now. And there's no more work being done here, but there is one place I just need to do a little itty bitty work. Little itty bitty work. Wonder if I have some paint left over here I can use. Ooh, look at that pretty thing. That's the black and the gray. Let's get some blue. I can change my mind. If I wanted to take a little bit of the Indian yellow, a little bit of the white, with a very steady hand, touch the left side of the mountains. Oops, wrong color. On a canvas, I would do this with a dry brush. And you can just hit. It's almost like a lining, or use white. It's more white than dark. A little bit of blue. I picked up black. This is probably something I probably shouldn't have done. And if you want it to be snow, just cap it with a little bit of snow. Don't make it too spotty though. I can go with a little bit of a smaller brush too. Just fix it. The dimensional effects are a little bit rough on this side. Just going with something a little bit darker just to kind of fix that up. There we are. Just remember that the mountains are so far in the distance that there really isn't a lot of detail that you can see. Just the silver lining and possibly a few little shadows here and there. There we go. That's pretty. This one here, the dimensional effects made a little jag out here, and the mountains don't really have little jags like that. So just fixing it a little bit, capping with a little bit of white. Same thing with here, just a little bit of white. And where you really want it to look like a little bit of a snow peak, that's a little bit of pure white. The very, very top, like so. And just tickle the brush and let the dimensional effects pick it up. I don't like the way that one worked out. Not thrilled. So I'm going to go back with some dark and just kind of fix that up a bit. If the, as you're doing this, if it's not picking anything up, then it's too smooth. So just maybe go with a bristle brush. This is a very small area to be doing this on. And I've got some videos on my blog where I do a demonstration of painting a mountain. It's in oils though, but it will give you a good idea about how it's done. Now I'm going to go back. It's going to take some burnt sienna. Oh, we'll go into this ucky color here. I even picked up some yellow. Just cleaning this up. Right here. There we are. But you notice how the tree had gotten, as the acrylics dried, it's much, much darker. I'm not going to hit it with anything else. I like what I have here. And I'm going to let this dry just for a few minutes. Then we'll come back and see what it looks like when it's all dried up. So we're all dry now, and it's looking absolutely beautiful. I do see some spots that need a little bit of correction work, but on paper, there's nothing you can do about it. Because look, it's so bent, like the paper is really warped, and there's just too much texture on both sides, but that's fine. I also found some parts here that the paint didn't quite reach. If this was a canvas, it would be on an easel, you can go all the way around. On paper, if you had to frame something like this, I would say have your background, as with anything, bigger than what you need, and then you can always trim it down to fit your frame. But I really, really enjoyed this. Love the way it turned out. Listen, the texture. Look at the texture on that. Look at the texture on that tree. Isn't that awesome? Oh, absolutely love it. Even Chaos loves it. Oh, and here comes Mia. Absolutely love it. It's beautiful. So I hope that you got some ideas on how to use these particular materials and learned a little bit about color mixing, some composition and stuff like that. And I'd love to see your work. So feel free to visit my blog and you can contact me there. And I will see you next time.